I'm Spriha, Field CTO here at Buildkite. Today I'd like to talk to you about why Buildkite and Bazel work great together. Lots of companies use Buildkite and Bazel together today. At a high level, they're synergistic because Buildkite is a flexible, dynamic, reactive system, while Bazel is a powerful, chatty product that gives us lots of useful things to react to. So when you combine the two, you get a lot of power to optimize your end-to-end CI/CD workflows. Let me give you some examples of these synergies. I've bucketed them into 4 different categories. 1, scale and parallelism. 2, speed through incrementality and strategic skipping. 3, real-time user feedback. And 4, streamlined configurations. Let's explore each of these. First, scale and parallelism. Both Buildkite and Bazel work great at large scales and work synergistically. Buildkite can run hundreds of thousands of agents concurrently, no problem. And this works great when you want to make full use of Bazel's caching and parallel execution. So with Buildkite, you can farm out your Bazel jobs to as many machines as you want, and Bazel is naturally good at making use of all these runners to parallelize builds and reuse previously built artifacts through its caching mechanisms. Caching, as you know, becomes more powerful the more parallelized the system is, so you get the most out of Bazel when using Buildkite. And in fact, when you farm out these Bazel jobs, these Bazel build and test steps across all these concurrent Buildkite agents, you can even optimize which jobs go to which machines so you can take advantage of your caches. Here, for instance, a large open source code base, the TensorFlow project, is being built with Bazel on many different targets like Linux GPUs, CPUs, Mac, Android, iOS, etc. All of these running Buildkite agents concurrently, and of course, all using Bazel to build. You can fan out this parallelism as much or as little as you need and allocate the right jobs to just the right machines. Next, both Buildkite and Bazel handle incrementality very well and very synergistically. Why is incrementality important? Well, when you really want to speed things up, the ability to skip just the right steps for a given incremental change becomes a very powerful feature of your system. Now, Bazel uses this principle to help you speed up build steps really quickly. Buildkite lets you dynamically compose a pipeline that skips to only the steps that matter. So you can combine these two to ensure that not only are your build steps really fast, you're also only running the steps that matter in the end-to-end pipeline. For instance, if you're only making a change to the iOS part of a build, with Bazel and Buildkite together, you can now create a system that only runs the required pre-build steps, builds and tests really fast, thanks to Bazel, and only runs the required post-build steps and deployment steps that are iOS specific. And all this selective skipping means that the process is sped up considerably, which means your developers wait less and you run less compute. And despite all this selective skipping resulting in many permutations of your pipeline, you don't have to worry about maintaining thousands of pipeline permutations, because with Buildkite, your pipelines don't have to be written in static YAML files. Your pipelines can be dynamically composed in whatever programming language you're most familiar with. So for example, you can run a Python script that attaches the right Buildkite commands to a pipeline based on whatever input you want, including, for instance, a Bazel graph query that tells you what's incrementally changed in this build. So you can do things like query the Bazel graph and use the results to determine what next steps you really need to run. So the fact that your pipeline is now this simple Python script that generates all these various permutations means that you get the benefit of 1,000 different pipelines while only having to maintain the logic in one simple Python script. Another synergy between Bazel and Buildkite is that Bazel produces a fire hose of potentially useful information during its builds, and Buildkite can dynamically and reactively surface just the most useful information from this fire hose. Bazel has an event stream that it emits through the Bazel event protocol, and Buildkite has a feature called Annotations that can dynamically create a UI that's reactive to whatever is happening in your Bazel build. So with Bazel and Buildkite together, you now have a system where your users see an extremely useful and reactive build interface, which becomes very handy when they need to troubleshoot. You can also use annotations to augment Bazel's information with additional context, like links to dashboards, runbooks, or whatever other useful information your developers might want to know. Here's an example of a build interface that uses annotations on Buildkite to surface the most useful information from the Bazel event protocol. Lastly, Buildkite and Bazel are great together because Buildkite makes Bazel's immense configurability manageable. Bazel can be configured and fine-tuned in many different ways. The flip side of all this fine-tuning is it can be difficult to provide one golden path that fits the needs of every project at the company. But with Buildkite, platform teams now get the ability to surface some flexibility to customer teams while still maintaining platform-wide control of shared configurations and also hiding the full complexity of Bazel's fine-tuning. Buildkite offers many useful building blocks for this, things like input steps and trigger steps and block steps. These let platform teams compose a system where users can provide some inputs and the rest of the pipeline can react accordingly. Here's an example where we're using the TensorFlow repo as an example codebase and letting the user select a build target that Bazel will then build. And so with Buildkite, platform teams can now provide golden paths to a variety of project teams within the company. So these project teams can still self-serve and customize things, but without overwhelming complexity being exposed to them. Buildkite makes Bazel's configurability manageable. So to recap, we talked about a few different ways Buildkite and Bazel are highly synergistic. 1. Scale and parallelism. With Buildkite and Bazel, you effectively remove all scaling constraints. 2. Speed through incrementality and strategic skipping. With Buildkite and Bazel, you can accelerate your entire software delivery process dynamically, regardless of how large or complex your code base is. 3. Real-time user feedback. With Buildkite and Bazel together, you're able to surface actionable information to your developers faster. 4. Streamlined configurations for your platform team. With Buildkite and Bazel together, your platform engineering team can create consistent guardrails for the rest of engineering while still letting them self-serve. These are some of the reasons why companies like Shopify, Uber, Slack, and even the Bazel project itself use Buildkite. If you're interested in exploring these synergies, reach out to us at buildkite.com, or you can also try a demo for yourself in the link below. Happy building!